Okay, so in this video we're going to look at how to make a widget. In this case we're going to make a widget for tangents and normals, but for both finding the gradient but also finding the actual equation of each one. It does come up in both exam 1 and exam 2, but with an exam 2 question it's only going to be worth 1 mark. So I don't want you to be wasting lots of time making lots of mistakes in order the algebra to get this. It just needs to be a 1 mark answer and you don't want to spend too much time doing it. So it's nice to have it all typed up, ready to go. So to do that we're going to use a notes page. Now you know you like to use notes pages because they are dynamic, which means one thing changes and everything else changes once you set it up. So you can see the power hopefully of having a widget set up in a notes page. First thing, we want to enter a math box. Now a reminder, that is Control and then M for you guys. You get this box here with the red line around it. Inside this, you're going to have all your mathematical formulas. Anything on the outside just becomes an annotation, like a note to remind yourself. You don't need to have a note, but it's not a bad thing sometimes. In this example, I think will be okay, but because some of the commands are fairly self-evident, but there might be times where you want to have comments, and with probability I tend to do that. We'll get there later on. So first of all, I'm going to save a function. I'm going to type in f of x, and Control and this button here, you can see it highlighting in red on the left. That just helps me to assign a function. I'm going to type in x to the power of 2 in there, just a simple function for now. On an exam, all you now have to do is change the x squared. However, you have to make sure you press enter, because notice now I've typed in the number 2. If I scroll out, you can see it's just blue. If it's just blue with no green writing on the side, it hasn't worked. So to make it work, I need to press enter and the done option comes up. If that done option is not there with the green arrow, it has not worked. So you must make sure you remember to do that. The second thing we're often asked to do is to find the value of a tangent at a point, so we have to substitute the x value in. So we actually want to write what an x value is. You don't have to call it x value, you can call it whatever you want, but do not save it as x, because x needs to be a variable. If you don't save it as something different, if you save x equals 1, it will substitute x equals 1 at the start up here, and it will not help you with your equations. So call it whatever you want, but just don't call it x or y. So in here, we've got x val. I'm going to save it. Let's just say that asks me to find the tangent at x equals 2. I do that, I press enter, it's saved. That's nice. Now I've got my function, I've got my x value. Now I can set up things for the tangent. So I know that the gradient of the tangent is always given by the derivative. That shouldn't cause any problems. So I'm going to save another function now called f of x, f derivative. You don't have to use f derivative, you can use whatever you want, just don't leave it as f of x, because you're going to need to have something different. So Control equals, and in here we want the derivative sign, which is in the same, it's currently highlighted red. And we can click on our derivative option there. Of course, the one down the bottom is x, because that's in the equation. In here we're going to have f of x, which I can collect from the variable option there. And type x, press enter, and it's done. We don't want it substituting in the x value just yet, because it'll substitute the number first, have a constant, and then differentiate it, which would be 0. So if I substitute a number in first, I get a constant value. If I differentiate that constant value, I get 0, and that's what it will do here if I put the x value in too early. That's all well and good. It doesn't show you what the derivative is. I'm going to just type in f derivative by itself, and that shows me what the derivative is. I mean, we should all know it's 4x anyway, but that's what it is. At this point, I can now substitute the x value in. So I can have it just like that, and in here I have x value. It's really quick for me on my computer. I'm a bit forgetful sometimes how quick it is on my computer, so that's why the variable button is really useful for you in your calculator. Once I have that, I can press enter and it substitutes x equals 2 into the equation of the derivative, and it gives me 8. So now I know the derivative of 2x squared when x equals 2 is 8. It's done it all for me. That's nice, but what if I want the tangent line? Well, thankfully for us, there is a command in our calculator that helps us find the tangent line. So this is how we're going to do it. You come up to menu, click a menu, and then you have a bunch of things. We want calculations. Now within calculations, you've got all your regular mode and all your menu from the calculator section. So we're going to go to calculus and we can find tangent line. We click on that down there. And within tangent line, it's all our normal functions from the calculator part of the graph. That's the function goes first, followed by the value in the function, the letter in the function. In our case, it's x, that's what we're differentiating, followed by the value of x at which we want to differentiate it, which in this case is x equals 2 or xval, as we were saying. Saved it. I press enter and it spits out the graph for me. And it tells me 8x minus 8 is the equation of my tangent. So now all you do is write y equals 8x minus 8 on your exam. To change that, well, we need to go back up the top and change our equation. So let's say the equation instead was 3 minus x to the power of 3. You press enter, it carries it all the way through, and notice your derivative changes, your x value in the derivative changes, and the actual tangent line changes. The last thing I can do here for you is to find your normal. The normal line is also a command we know. That's back into menu, calculations, calculus, normal line, and we have exactly the same entries. We press enter and it gives it to us. So we'd have y equals x over 12 minus 31 over 6 is our normal line. Well, that's how you create a widget for tangent lines. You don't necessarily need these middle lines I'm going to highlight now. You don't necessarily need any of those to create a widget for the tangent and normal lines, but it might be that you want to actually see what the derivative is. You might be asked for it as part of the question anyway. Or it might be that you're asked to find the value of the gradient and then ask the tangent or something. So it's useful. You don't need it, but it's useful. So feel free to delete if you don't want it. Now the final thing here before you can finish your widget is to save it. Now it's really important you save it as a widget. If you do not save it as a widget, it will save it as a document and it will wipe over everything, just like I suggested in the previous video. So we now go into our doc, we're going to go to file, and we save as. Now there's lots of places to save it in here. You may have quite a few, you may have too many. If your calculator is properly updated, you will have a folder called My Widgets. And we're going to double click on that, and it opens up your widgets option. Now you can see I've already got tangents and normals one there. I'm just going to call this one T and N. You can call it whatever you want. Remember, it's not a QWERTY keyboard for you, so it will take longer, but make sure you label it something that is going to be useful to you, whether it's even just tan, norm, or something. Whatever it might be, save it as something that will be useful to you in an exam, and then we save it. Now, how do we use that? A reminder, if I'm going to insert this, remember I need to insert this on an exam. I'm going to close it down. I've saved it now. I'm going to close it down. I'm going to open a new document. I can add a widget straight away, and that will be there. Or I can have my 2x minus 6 equals 0 again, and then I now need to find the tangent. I go doc, insert, widget, and we select the one we want, the tangent normals that we just did. And it slides in alongside, you haven't lost any information. So that was making a widget for tangents and normals. Hopefully it was helpful. Start posting some questions down the bottom of how to in the calculator for you, and I'll do my best to make some that you need. Thanks guys, see you next time.